So what if you could actually escape the 9-to-5 grind by working just 4 hours a week? I know, it sounds pretty wild, but it's the core idea behind a huge global movement. Today, we're breaking down the DEAL formula. This is the engine that powers the entire philosophy of the 4-hour workweek. Let's dive right in.
Right off the bat, the author, Tim Ferriss, just throws down the gauntlet. This quote right here, it's meant to make you stop in your tracks and totally rethink what productivity even means. It's really the first big step in a major mindset shift we're about to explore.
So you might be wondering, where did an idea this radical even come from? Well, it wasn't just dreamed up in some think tank. It was forged in the fire of a problem I think a lot of us know all too well: total and complete burnout.
Okay, so picture this. This is Tim Ferriss back in the early 2000s. He's running his own sports nutrition company, and he is completely chained to it. I'm talking 80-hour weeks, managing every single tiny detail, and just heading straight for a breakdown. Sound a little familiar?
So, pushed to his absolute limit, he takes off for Europe. It was supposed to be a sort of forced escape, and what he found out was kind of shocking. Without him there, micromanaging everything, the business didn't just stay afloat, it actually did better. And that was the aha moment, realizing he was the bottleneck, not the solution. That incredible realization led him to completely rethink, well, everything. And it all starts with redefining one of the most powerful words out there: rich. Okay, so look at this. On the left, you've got absolute income. That's the number most of us are taught to chase, right? The big yearly salary. But on the right, that's the real key: relative income. This is a measure of your freedom. It's not about how much you make, it's about how much you make for every single hour you have to give up for it.
So, keeping those two definitions in mind, let's play out a little scenario. Who do you think is really the richer person here?
Check this out. Person A, no doubt, has a much higher absolute income, but they're working 80 hours a week in a super expensive city. Now look at person B. They make way less money, but they only work 4 hours a week from, a tropical paradise. In this new way of thinking, person B is way, way richer because they have what actually matters: total control over their time and their location. That right there is true freedom.
And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? Real wealth isn't about collecting fancy things. It's about having complete control over your own time. It's about understanding that the ultimate luxury is freedom itself.
Okay, so that's the goal, but how do you actually get there? This is where the practical step-by-step plan comes into play, and it's an acronym: DEAL. This whole formula breaks down into 4 parts. First, you define your new goals. Then, you eliminate all the junk that's holding you back. Third, you automate your income. And finally, you liberate yourself from being stuck in one place. Let's break each of those down.
So, the first step, definition, is that big mindset shift we were just talking about. It's about consciously deciding that your #1 goal is no longer just a bigger paycheck. Instead, it's about having more control over your time and where you are. It's about figuring out what your dream lifestyle actually costs and making that your target.
All right, next up, E is for elimination. This is all about ruthless efficiency. It's based on a concept you've probably heard of called the 80-20 rule, or the Pareto principle. And this chart shows it perfectly. Basically, the rule says that for most things in life, about 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts. So Ferriss applied this to his business. He realized a tiny group of his customers caused almost all of his problems, while another small group brought in most of the money. So you know what he did? He fired the problem clients. And guess what? His income went up and his stress went way down. The key is to find that vital 20% and focus only on that. Okay, so once you've cut out all the waste, you move on to A, for automation. The goal here is pretty simple: build systems that run without you. This could be an online business that ships products automatically. He calls this a muse. Or it could be as simple as outsourcing your busy work to a virtual assistant. The whole point is to build a machine that makes money for you, so you're free to do, well, whatever else you want. And all of this leads to the final amazing step: L, for liberation. This is the payoff. This is what it's all for. With your time freed up and your income on autopilot, you are no longer tied to one desk in one city. This opens the door for remote work, long-term travel, and something he calls mini retirements. Taking awesome month-long breaks throughout your life instead of just waiting until you're 65. So when you put all of this together, you start to see 2 completely different ways of looking at how to live your one life. Let's actually put them side by side and compare. So on the right, you've got the Deferred Life Plan. This is the traditional path, right? Work your tail off for 40 years so you can finally relax, where being busy is a good thing, and the goal is just more and more money. On the left, you have the New Rich. This path is all about taking those mini retirements now, being incredibly effective instead of just busy, aiming for just enough income to fund your ideal lifestyle, and tuning out all the noise and distraction. It's a totally fundamental split in how you view work, money, and life. So after looking at this whole framework, it really all comes back to you, and a pretty big choice. How do you want to design your life? The big takeaway here isn't that you absolutely have to work exactly 4 hours. The real goal, the ultimate prize, is to build a life that gives you complete and total freedom to choose what you do with your time. Maybe you'll want to start a passion project or travel the world, or maybe you really will want to work just 4 hours a week. The point is, it's your choice.
So let's end this with a challenge, one that comes straight from the book. Ferriss always says that real progress only happens when you take uncomfortable actions. So my question for you is this. What is one small, maybe slightly uncomfortable thing you could do today to start cutting out the waste and taking back your time?